Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Inside Track, Equibase's weekly handicapping podcast, sponsored by FanDuel Racing, where we give our analysis picks and wagers for a couple of the weekend's top races. I'm your host, Ben Kudla, and I welcome back Colin Sheehan on the show, the host of the Doubling Down podcast on the Trust the Profits YouTube channel. Be sure to check them out on YouTube at Trust the Profits, and as well as follow Colin on X at CSheehan45 for some great racing content. Colin, always great to have you on the show. You bring your positivity, and I just love it. But how'd you fare handicapping wise in the Oaks and Derby this year and the undercards?
Did great Saturday. Friday, not so much. And I went to bed Friday night telling my wife, I think I placed 50 bets and got them all wrong today. So you can't get much worse tomorrow, right? And then Saturday started off as a rough. Had a rough beginning to the day. But once we hit about race 8 or 9, we really started cashing them in. And that's when it mattered, right? As you start to get to the big races, and we were able to dig ourselves out of a hole, and Sovereignty came through and made it a winning weekend for me. I'm a break-even player, and sometimes you lose a lot and then you win it back, or sometimes you win a lot and then you lose it. So it was very enjoyable to go through 2 full days of all that excellent racing and walk away. And when you tell your friends to bet Sovereignty and he wins the Derby, you look like a genius for the one time they tune in for the year. So that will keep me going for the next few weeks.
There you go. Yeah, you're walking into work like the man. That was my horse. Yeah. I was literally quite the opposite of you. I won all my money Friday and only cashed a couple Saturday, but we squeaked by with a positive weekend. But and just really what an amazing Derby week it was. Godolphin with the Oaks Derby double, becoming just the 5th owner of all time to win both the Oaks and the Derby in the same year. Good cheer, remaining a perfect 7 for 7, winning the Oaks. Winning all her career starts by a combined 44 1/2 lengths. This is Sire Medagli's Duro's 3rd progeny win in the Kentucky Oaks all-time. Fierceness came back with a vengeance after a 6-month layoff following his 2nd place finish in the Breeders' Cup Classic, winning the Grade 2 Ali Sheba Stakes in track record time. Spirit of St. Louis, quite the rally to take the Grade 1 Turf Classic Stakes on Saturday. Terrific finish in the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes with 5 horses coming down to the wire. Mindframe was able to get the win, but banishing a Nisos, a horse coming off a very long layoff for Bob Baffert at the time, hitting the wire together for dead heat for 2nd. Macho Music, nice upset in the Grade 2 Pat Dial. Matt Damile, kudos to anybody who hit that horse. I didn't have him on anything, but there's so many wonderful moments last week beneath the Twin Spires. But any stand-up performances you noticed over the weekend?
I thought Copian and the Derby City Distaff really popped. Ended up with the highest Equibase speed figure on the weekend, coming over from Santa Anita. That was a really impressive performance. And one thing I think when we get to talking to the Derby is the way she powered down the center of the track. I think the center of the track ended up being a big part of the story, at least Saturday with all the rain that had come through. And my Friday went haywire when Locked and Torpedo Anna didn't make it either of them.
Yep.
And I had some friends that were really high on Raging Sea that really felt like the other option. And Torpedo Anna obviously had some trouble in that going into the turn there, and maybe it turns out a little bit different, maybe not. But that's where I knew Friday. I said, I'm in trouble here on this day when neither of the 2 that I really banked on just were beaten by 2 really superb performances, both by Raging Sea and by Fierceness.
Yeah, hopefully Torpedo Anna's all right. I was looking, obviously at the Kenny McPeak Twitter. It sounds like she's okay, and maybe they just had her come back a little bit too early. Obviously, the last time she had that short of a turnaround, she didn't fare as well again. But really hope our 2024 Horse of the Year comes back and we get to see her in the winner's circle again. But honestly, let's just dive right in to this Kentucky Derby 151. First of all, very interesting start, as you'll see on the inside here before we go. But yeah, Sovereignty was able to rally late, perfectly timed ride under Junior Alvarado to win by 1.5 lengths. And honestly, I think Copian was the same way, just a perfectly timed ride. I'm glad you brought that horse up. And Mandela rarely comes to Churchill as his first start there since 2018 at Churchill. And he does very well with domestic shippers and graded stakes. So definitely one to watch on the horizon. But anyway, going back to Sovereignty, he's able to rally late to win by a length and a half. Perfectly timed ride. This is Junior Alvarado's first ever Kentucky Derby win, and trainer Belmont's second all time, and Godolphin's first ever Kentucky Derby win. And Sovereignty by Into Mischief is the third progeny by Into Mischief to win the Derby, joining Authentic and Mandaloon. So here's some interesting. Progeny of Into Mischief win the Derby at a 20% clip. 3 wins from 15 starts all time, which I believe ties the record for most Derby wins by a sire. And prior to this year's Derby, the average winning equibase speed figure in the Derby was a 110, and Sovereignty earned a 103. But let's just go through this replay here. And obviously the 18 here is your Derby winner if you want to watch him. Clip heels at the beginning a little bit, a little rough start, but here we go.
And at the beginning, we talked about how much the early speed was on the inside.
Yeah.
And you're going to mention Citizens Bull on the inside. Part of, I think, this strategy here is more to get to the center of the track because the rail was not producing winners on the day, and they're coming down the stretch here, cross course passings for the first time. But that was the strategy of get off of that rail. I think let's get to the center of the track where the success had been had on that day for Martin Garcia.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that was on purpose, just going straight right out of the gate, if that were the instructions or not. It's kind of interesting, or the horse just bore out, I guess would be the chart term. But regardless, it was a move outside of the one hole that I have not seen. He gets that lead that he wanted. He did slam an American Promise, and D. Wayne Lucas did say after the race that was kind of what kind of brought him out of it. But honestly, this race literally set up exactly how I feel like we all talked about how it would go. Citizen Bull, Owen Almighty, Neo Equus, American Promise, and East Avenue, all in the front. Blistering 46.23 for the half mile.
Yeah, and at this point, like you said, you expect when you vision this race so many times leading up to it, okay, who's going to have the trouble? Someone's going to have trouble. It's not going to go as perfectly as you expect, but at this point, you're looking at where the horses are, and you're like, well, this is exactly how we all envisioned it. And how often does that actually happen? Not often, especially when you have an off track. There was the fact that none of these horses had really had run over an off track. So you also didn't know how that was going to affect that, right? And Owen Almighty was an absolute incredible performance as they.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he stayed up. But I think this is right here. The timed ride is that journalism went first. And then here comes Sovereignty. So Junior, that was just so smart. The third point of call, journalism was 11th and Sovereignty was 17th. So he had that jump and he's just able to just cruise by him. And look at that, but wins by a length and a half. I thought Baeza just ran huge. Definitely going to be looking at that one for the Belmont in the future, coming up in a couple weeks. So just overall a great Derby. And like we said before the show, I think the 3 most talented horses in that field finished 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, we talked about what of an epic weekend it was for Godolphin. How about an epic weekend for Puka?
Yes.
The Dama Baeza. It's just amazing to have 3 horses in the Derby 3 years in a row. I say that on every podcast I've been on in the last 10 days. So anybody that's seeing me here for the second or third time are probably telling me to shut up about Puka. But to me, that is just as amazing as what Godolphin did and the success that they had. To be able to have a horse and not only it's not like Baeza just showed up and ran in the Derby. It's not like Mays just showed up and ran in the Derby, and Dornoch was in that one hole who actually had a pretty good run on that day. So they're not only making it, they're having their footprint and making an impact on this race. So we'll see how the filly that she just gave birth to 2 weeks ago, maybe in a few years, we've got an Oaks entry in there as well.
That would be so wild to have an Oaks winner and a Derby winner and a Belmont. I think she's going to have 2 Belmont winners by the end of the end of this year. That could be it. But regardless, just what a fun Derby. And it's today's Wednesday recording this, so we have 361 days until the 152nd running the Run for the Roses. But anyway, I hope everybody cashed on some tickets and was able to take advantage. But for the handicapping portion of the show, I thought there was no better time to play a Daily Double with the king of Daily Doubles himself, the host of the Doubling Down podcast, Colin Sheehan. So fantastic card at Belmont on the Big A on Saturday up in New York with 5 graded stakes on the card. Last 2 races on the card are the Grade 2 Ruffian Stakes and the Grade 3 Peter Pan Stakes. So let's get in on a little daily double action. Colin and I will each put together a $1 daily double with a budget of just $4. So here we go. Grade 2 Ruffian Stakes, race 10 on Saturday with a post of 6:16 p.m. Eastern, 1 mile on the dirt for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. Last year's winner was Soul of an Angel, who romped by 4 3/4 lengths at odds of 24-1 for trainer Safi Joseph Jr. with Trevor McCarthy aboard. Soul of an Angel went on to win the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint last November at Del Mar, winning at odds of 19-1. So after her bid in the Rampart Stakes at the end of December, she was sold for $2.6 million. Chatsworth stud in Australia. So fun fact about Soul of an Angel, she actually RNA'd for $3,000 as a yearling at the Fasig-Tipton sale. In 2020, went on to win $1.2 million at lifetime earnings. So pretty cool. I always love those stories. But nice competitive field of 11 here on Saturday with both Chad Brown and Safi Jr. having 2 entries apiece. Colin, what's your strategy here in the first leg of the daily double?
Yeah, I have a checklist I usually go through when I'm looking at races. And the first is, not always in this order, but I want to see what horses have had success at the distance. This race is going a mile in the dirt for 4-year-olds and up. Couldn't eliminate anybody there because they're all pretty successful at the distance.
Yeah.
So you continue on down your list. And next thing I kind of look at is pace. I had the 1, 9, 11 as your early leaders, a couple horses right there pressing 3, 5, 6, 8. A couple off the pace, 2, 4, number 7, and you only had the closer in the number 10. So to me, nothing really stood out as far as sometimes when you might only see one horse that's early speed and you got 7 closers, obviously that lends to lead towards your early speed. And like in the Derby, you got all this early speed, it sets up for a closer. So I went through that and couldn't really come to a conclusion there either. Then I look at what kind of race are we running, and this is a Grade 2, and some foundational handicapping I use is Grade 1 is obviously your highest tier, and Grade 1 winners are, usually, this is a generic statement, but substantially better than your Grade 2s and Grade 3s, and Grade 2s are better than your Grade 3s. And when you start to do that and start to look through the field, I really started to narrow in on 3 horses, and that's your number 8, your number 9, and your number 10. It's basically Jody's Pride, Gunsong, who was a stakes winner, a Grade 2 winner back in 2024, and My Main Squeeze, who's not only successful at the Grade 3 in the Fasig-Tipton at Churchill in September, but also won the 8 Bells back in May of 24 as well, a Grade 2 and a Grade 3 race. My Main Squeeze eventually is where I landed, and just going to single My Main Squeeze in this race. Don't have the odds as we tape this, but I absolutely know that this horse is going to be low odds. And when you have putting together a daily double, what I always preach on my show is A, pay attention to the probables, and B, take an opinion, make an opinion, have a strong opinion. I can understand in a pick 4, pick 5, where maybe you want to cover yourself 2 or 3 times to get through. Doubles, you kind of just have to be a little bit more. I can't decide between 8, 9, and 10, but you got to find a way to get there. And you gotta pick one. So I had a concern about My Main Squeeze not having a workout since April 22nd. But the 3 consecutive speed figures, and I know 2 of those go back to last year, of just in the hundreds. Second off the layoff here from Michael Maker, Manny Franco aboard. Lost to Positano Sunset, who was a horse I was high on over the weekends. You look at some of the horses that My Main Squeeze has been running against. I know we're going back to last year, but I think that this horse just ends up being the class of the class here. And I had to make a decision, so we will go with My Main Squeeze as my single in the Ruffian.
Well, we did not talk before the show, by the way, everybody, who our picks were. We handicapped separately, but I also went with that strategy as well to single in here with My Main Squeeze. And kind of, that's right. Maybe we'll find a little value next race if we can beat those favorites. But I absolutely loved her and Copian for the Grade 1 Derby City Distaff. My top 2 picks for that race on our Kentucky Derby special last week on the Insides track, and they scratched her to point her towards this race, meaning My Main Squeeze. I just think that says it all. Ultra consistent 4-year-old filly by Audible, Mike Maker, as he said, with Manny Franco aboard. Saez was aboard for most of her, a majority of her starts, but Franco was aboard last time out running second in that Grade 1 Madison Stakes to your Positano Sunset. The past 3 years, Maker and Franco are winning at 21% in all races at Belmont at the Big A or Aqueduct. 11 wins from 52 starts and 52% in the money. Throughout My Main Squeeze's career, 14 career starts, and she's only run out of the money twice with 6 wins, 2 wins, and 4/3. And the only times she ran out of the money was against Torpedo Anna. She finished 4th most recently in the Grade 1 Acorn last June. And ever since the Acorn, look at her running lines. Ran 3rd in the Grade 1 test to Ways and Means and Emory, who are both powerhouses at that point in time. Ran 2nd in Mystic Lake in the Grade 2 Charlestown Oaks, who won the Grade 2 Inside Information Stakes on Pegasus Day at Gulfstream this January. Runs off in the Grade 3 Dogwood Stakes by 5 lengths, running a 102 Equibase speed figure. And a couple starts back, she runs 2nd again to Emory in the Grade 2 Raven Run at Keeneland, earning a 100 Equibase speed figure. Takes a long layoff to run in the Grade 1 Madison, which is tough to take a layoff and run in a Grade 1. So I think she's going to be even better this time. Last 3 consecutive races, all triple-digit Equibase speed figures, like you said. And subsequently, she is ranked 1st in here with an average speed of a 96, ranked 1st in late pace rating with a 109, which always seems to produce some success. So
I like the
running
too.
Yeah, I actually do too, especially with her running style. You know, she's been running those 7 furlongs for a while now, and she's finally stretching back out to a mile where that's seemingly her preferred distance. You know, she's 2 for 2 at this mile distance, and like you said, a lot of these guys are pretty dang good at this mile distance. But lifetime, she also has 4 starts over this Aqueduct track with 3 wins and a 3rd. Horses for courses, baby. So, yeah, single all the way. I like this horse quite a bit. Some other vulnerable contenders. We haven't mentioned the 3 yet. Catherine Wheel, Flavien Pratt, Chad Brown, grade stakes races is something you can never ignore. In the past 3 years, they win at 27% together. Graded stakes races, 55% in the money. 42 wins for 155 starts with an actual positive 14% return on investment. So you can't take that. And, you know, another horse I was really interested in is this one, Take the Money Honey. Homebred filly bred in Maryland, sired by Golden Lad. It was just a 4,500 stud fee, but she's 3 for 4 lifetime. Their only loss being to the grade to the 3, the Catherine Wheel. An allowance optional claiming 45. Now winners a 1. You know, trainer Michael Moore decided to scratch from the Heavenly Cause Stakes at Laurel and opted for an allowance optional claimer. Non-winners a 2. Ran off by 5 1/4 lengths. You know, a day later after she scratched, but that's not a good look for me that you would opt for that instead of just going for a list of stakes at Laurel as being a little bit too competitive. And I do like Gunsong, you know, lost the 2024 Horse of the Year at Torpedo Anna by just a neck in that Grade 1 Cotillion. And she was 44 to 1. And, you know, ever since that, then she becomes the favorite. So, you know, she might be bet down just because of that. So we'll see. But yeah, I think definitely a single on My Main Squeeze is the play.
Yeah. And like I said, I can't fault anyone for taking Gunsong or taking Jody's Pride. I think those are 2 very logical horses in here. I just, on a double ticket, you can't take more than one of them. So you got to pick one and you got to decide which one you're going to go with. And My Main Squeeze was the one for me.
Well, there we go. Let's move on to Grade 3 Peter Pan Stakes, race 11 on Saturday at Belmont at the Big A with a post time of 6:46 p.m. Eastern. Mile and 1/8 on the dirt for 3-year-olds. Last year's winner was Antiquarian at odds of 5 to 1 for trainer Todd Pletcher with John Velasquez aboard. Some notable past winners who won this race that went on to win the Belmont Stakes were Tonalist 2014, Archangelo in 2023, AP Indy won the Peter Pan before going on to win the 1992 Belmont Stakes. In 1986, Danzig, a connection to the same thing, as well as Coastal in 1979. So a very historically important race indeed. Interesting field of 10 here on Saturday with Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, and Richard Dutro Jr., all with 2 entries apiece. Who are you going with for the second leg of the Daily Double?
Well, on top, I'm going back to the well with Captain Cook, who was my pick in the Wood Memorial and just didn't have it that day running up against Rodriguez, who we all know kind of just was able to go out and go gate to wire. But I thought it was a good effort. You know, weakened late at the mile and the 1/8, but I like the fact that this horse has 2 races over the mile and 1/8 distance, including the Withers. Horseman came pressed and came to win that. I love for 3-year-olds seeing the improving speed figures like we do with Captain Cook. Starts off in that 6 furlong race at Churchill, goes 78, runs at Aqueduct on a sloppy track at 7 furlongs, runs at 94. They stretch him out to 1.125 miles. The number pairs a number to me. It's, he puts a 95, which is basically the same, comes back in the wood and then puts up a 101. To me, that's just, I don't know that we've seen the ceiling yet of Captain Cook. And this is a horse I had high hopes for actually possibly getting into the Kentucky Derby. So there's a little bit of a bias there on the talent that I think that Captain Cook has. 410,000 purchase, sired by Practical Joke. I'm getting over that bias I had of Practical Joke horses not getting the distance. I know it's a little bit lighter than others, but I've been burnt too many times now. So I'm going to put that aside and put Captain Cook on top for me. I thought you could go in a couple other places in here. I thought the 10 Lordship is one that I'd want to give a shot. We don't have the morning lines, but I think I saw David Argona put out that this horse would be at 12-1, which is nice. You don't know what you're going to get from a second-time starter, $725,000 purchase in the Saratoga sale 2023 makes you think that there's some talent there. Sired by Gunrunner, and you got Chad Brown running in New York with Dylan Davis. To me, that's something I absolutely want to pay attention to. This horse is cross-entered, it looks like, at Monmouth for May 10th. So we'll just have to keep our eye on if Lordship runs in here. Mm-hmm. But the 10 is another one that I would absolutely want to include. Uncaged as well as the other horse I threw on there. I only had the 8 as really being your early speed. When I went through it, at least, some of these horses have only run 3-4 times, so you don't necessarily know. But yeah, I know a jockey like Kendrick Carmouche is someone I would love to have on the front end of a horse that maybe this horse can get to the front. And Uncaged, sired by Curlin. So to me, the 1.125 distance isn't a concern. It has a victory over a muddy track at Aqueduct. Todd Pletcher, you always have to respect in New York. And I don't know what the price is on Uncaged, but I thought that he was interesting in here as well. So kind of going with the horse that I have throughout this Derby trail thought was talented, Captain Cook, and then adding in a few of those kind of newcomers to the table at a price, hoping that maybe they can get home for me to finish off this double.
Well, there you go. Like you said, great minds think alike. Here we go, singling and trying to find some value. So there's Colin's Ruffian and Peter Pan double 10 with 4, 6, 8, 10. I kind of have some similar numbers, but I went with a different horse on top. This Hill Road, a very talented quality road colt for the Chad Brown barn with Flavian Pratt aboard. First time riding. By the way, in his past 281 starts, first time riding, Pratt wins at 23% with a race lens score of a 7.3. But anyway, Hill Road broke his maiden in Ireland going a mile on the turf, round by 5 lengths on debut, and then goes into a Group 1, runs 7th by 9 lengths before shipping across the pond to run in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile back in November at Del Mar. At odds of 61-1, I thought he ran incredible game third from dead last by a lot going into that final turn. Moved up on the inside, splitting horses, gaining with every stride at the end to catch Getaway Car in the final strides. He lost to Citizen Bull in Gaming in the Juvenile. And that was kind of when those two horses were arguably at the top of their game. Took a 4-month layoff after that to come back in the Grade 3 Tampa Bay Derby to run third to Owen Almighty and Chance McPatrick, who were both really trying very hard for Derby points at that time for that race. So that's something else to consider. Hill Road is yet to run back since the Grade 3 Tampa Bay Derby on March 8th, but I think this is a perfect spot that Chad Brown has put him in, and based on his horses, Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I can see him pointing towards the Belmont with this horse, honestly, just like Tonalist did. But in the past 3 years, Chad Brown wins at 30% with 3-year-olds at Belmont at the Big A, 18 of 61 and 63% in the money with a positive 20% ROI. Hill Road's ranked first in here with an average class of a 101, ranked first with average speed of a 94, and ranked second in late pace rating of a 104.5. Brown and Pratt went at 29% in dirt route graded stakes races together. In the last 3 years, 12 wins from 42 starts, 64% in the money with a positive ROI, and they went at 27% together in all graded stakes races in the past 3 years. Yeah, in my notes, I didn't have the morning lines, but I guess you said 5-2, and that's not too terrible. I think he is going to win, but I'm going to add some others in there. This one, Vassimo, is pretty interesting. Racelands gave him a 28.3% chance to win, but Todd Pletcher and Irad. I like how consistent this horse is, running in 81 and 90 and 86 and 88. Not too much of a regression, not too much of progression. He's just kind of there. He didn't run too well in the Grade 2 Risen Star and Grade 2 Louisiana Derby, but obviously that's why he did not run in the Kentucky Derby. So, nice maybe come back for a nice little Grade 3, get some confidence under their belt. Obviously it's hard not to like the 8 Captain Cook, and what you said, 2-1 morning line favorite, progressing speed figures. Losing to Rodriguez, which I think that's most likely could be your Preakness winner. I could just say that right now, but I still got to dive deep into the stats. But the racing gods could align for that one. But I love Manny Franco aboard. He's just so dangerous at any day at Belmont at the Big A and the Aqueduct. How many times have we seen him have 4 or 5 win days out there? So he can get hot. Same with Kendrick Carmouche, another one. Todd Pletcher, you got to add that 6 in there since we have the money for it. So I decided to put the 1 in there over the 10 Lordship. But Dylan Davis first time riding is also a pretty good Racelands angle if you want to add that one in there. But my daily double ticket, I'll also be singling the 10, going with 4186 here. So thank you, Colin, for being on. It's always a pleasure. So much fun talking horses with you, my man. Recapping the fantastic 2025 Kentucky Derby. But good luck, everybody, in your wagers this weekend. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.